Hello and welcome to pmblounge.com. Today we are taking another step in the scope management knowledge area and we meet our new friend known as work breakdown structure, also called as WBS by some of the project managers in the industry. Some people often call it WBS and that could sound a bit weird. So work breakdown structure, what is it? This is just an introduction video, by the way. There is so much to learn about work breakdown structure that we cannot cover all of it in just one video unless that becomes an hour long and you lose the interest after first 10 minutes, right? So we will cover a lot of things around work breakdown structure, a lot of concepts around work breakdown structure in the videos to follow. So subscribe if you haven't done so already. And there is also an article over at pmplounge.com. The link to it will be available in the description. If you feel like reading something, if you need something for reference, for future reference, and you don't really want to go over a video, you can always check the description box and uh, read the article on work breakdown structure, which is complementary to this video. Let's get started. First up, as always, why is this important? So WBS is one of the most referred to deliverable on your project. So you will see most of the project managers referring to the WBS a lot of times because it is that important. Why, we will learn later in this video in a minute. WBS is very important concept from exam perspective. Like I said, there is a lot to learn around WBS. We cannot comprehend, we cannot have just one video on WBS and explain everything. So the concepts around WBS, the concept of WBS itself is extremely important. You'll definitely find questions in the exam around WBS. And finally, WBS junkies, people who love the WBS to death, they will feel that a project cannot be managed without a WBS. So if you're a project manager, if you're managing your projects without a WBS, if a WBS junkie meets you, they will be utterly surprised because they do everything in and out mentioned in the WBS, that is mentioned in the WBS. If there's no WBS, they might feel lost as to where the project is and what needs to be done. So this is where it falls. Create WBS process. This belongs to the planning process group under the project scope management knowledge area. We've already covered the above three processes that you see: the plan, scope management, collect requirements, and define scope. These three we have already covered in detail, and I'll share a link to the entire playlist of the project scope management knowledge area in the description. You can go over it if you want to learn about the other processes. So create WBS. I think we missed an E there in create. Sorry about that. So create WBS process. So we will go ahead. We will go over this process. To understand this process, let's first understand what WBS is. So the best way to understand the create WBS process is to start from the point of understanding the WBS, like I mentioned. And WBS, it might sound weird. Like I said, some people pronounce it as VBIS, and that's when it gets really weird. But it stands for work breakdown. What is WBS? So it is basically a way to organize the project team's work into manageable parts. And that is the reason why I said it is one of those things that is referred to most, one of those things which is mostly referred, right, during the course of the project. And WBS junkies, they swear by it. So it is basically a way how you are going to organize the work of the project team, right, into manageable parts. And what do we mean by that? It'll be much more clear in the next two lines, as well as when we discuss an example of WBS. So from definition perspective, WBS is a deliverable oriented, right? So it is deliverable oriented. It is not activity oriented. So let's say one of the deliverables of your project is the project management plan. So in the WBS, you will find project management plan mentioned, right, as a deliverable. You won't find the processes, the activities required to create the project management plan, unless the WBS is activity oriented. Some projects do make I'm personally aware of some projects, some project managers that tend to create a WBS which is activity oriented, which may get very messy to be frank, but by definition, WBS is deliverable oriented. So it will mention one of the deliverables of the project as the project management plan. It won't mention the steps or the activities required for achieving or creating or baselining the project management plan. Another thing about WBS is that it is a hierarchical decomposition of the work. The work is decomposed into manageable parts, as we have seen in the first line of this slide. That is what WBS does, but those manageable parts, they are hierarchically aligned, right? So it is a hierarchical decomposition. Now, all of this will be very, very clear when we look into an example. So let's get into the example. So a website development project is the example here, right? So if you are assigned a project which is website development, how do you decompose this work? You decompose it by not by activity, but by deliverables, as we discussed in the last slide, right? So what are your deliverables? Your deliverables are UX, which is the user interface. Your deliverables are servers. Your deliverables is a database, right? So these are your deliverables when your project is a website development project. Now, how do you get to UX? How do you get to this deliverable? You need some more deliverables to, complete your user interface deliverable. What do you need? You need web pages. You need CSS, and those who are aware of web designing will relate to it. If you're not, let's just assume that CSS is also a deliverable, just like web pages and images are a deliverable, right? You've got graphics, there could be certain graphics that you need. So all of this comprise of the UX, and all of this is needed if you want to complete the UX deliverable, the user interface, right? If you want to complete the user interface deliverable, you need these four deliverables, right? So like I said, it is deliverable oriented, it is not activity oriented. Never on this slide will you see, let's continue with the example of UX, you won't see what you need to do to make web pages, right? You won't see that. You'll just mention the deliverable, not the activities required to achieve web pages, right? It's just the deliverable, which is web pages, which is CSS, which is images, which is graphics. So let's say you want to have certain graphics for your graphics or images for your user interface, right? the the WBS doesn't tell you who is responsible for the images, which department is responsible for images, what data you need to give them for them to be able to create the images, right? Is there any approval required? What is the cost involved? Nothing like that. No activities are mentioned. It's just purely deliverable oriented. WBS is purely deliverable oriented. So only deliverables are mentioned. Let's look into other deliverables. So for servers, you need servlets and action handlers. So these are the two deliverables to deliver the server's deliverable. Let's look into database. So you need schema and you need the database schema, of course, and the database tables to deliver the database deliverable, right? If you could further decompose this, right? If you need some more deliverables for schema, you can add another section here, and you can include that item here, right? Whatever that you need, XYZ that you need, right? To complete the schema deliverable. So it is since we have decomposed this WBS into three levels, level 1, 2, and 3, as you can see, it doesn't mean that WBS need to be just three levels. WBS can be as many levels as possible, unless you have broken down the deliverables, broken down the work required to create the deliverable into manageable parts, right? So if schema is manageable, you keep it till schema. If there's something else that you need um, under schema, right, to be able to deliver a schema, if it's too big of a deliverable that it is not manageable, and there is a tool to understand if it is too much or not, we will be creating video on that as well. So if it is too much, you decompose the work further, you decompose the deliverable further. If it's not too much, if it's manageable, you decompose it up to that level only and don't go any further. So that's an example of WBS. Hope it was helpful to understand how projects are managed. This of course is very helpful, especially in large projects. So that's pretty much it that we had in this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Check us out on our social media, facebook.com/pmblounge and twitter.com/pmblounge. Send your queries at pmblounge@gmail.com, and don't forget to check out the website pmblounge.com, your number one free resource for PMP certification and project management industry information. Thank you.